Okay, Mary Kay, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this candidates forum. I'm Mary Kay Rosinski. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters, Villages, Tri-County. Tonight we have members, candidates for the Florida House of Representatives, District 52, Ash Marwah and John Temple. Also joining us is our League of Women Voters past president, Gail Formanak, and she will be the one asking the questions. But before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are a nonpartisan organization that was founded 102 years ago. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend democracy. Our mission, we host a variety of voter registration drives and voter education events like this forum. We have members in Lake, Sumter, and Marion counties. I'd like you all to be aware of our online voters guide, vote411.org. It is a one-stop shop for election-related, nonpartisan materials. If your organization is in need of a speaker, our Speakers Bureau offers topics such as the history of women's suffrage, the November constitutional amendments, and much more. So I encourage you to visit our website, lwvtrifl.org, to learn more about our work. So about this forum, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to briefly discuss their platform. Gail will then present questions, and each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to that question for 2 minutes. At the end of the forum, each candidate will be given 3 minutes for closing remarks. So, shall we begin? Gail?
Yes, and I want to mention that Mary Kay will serve as our timer. You want to hold up one of the signs, so you need to kind of keep an eye on Mary Kay, and she'll give you the time to close, which would be, time to wrap it up. And I will cut you off if you go a little too long. Okay, so we are going to start with alphabetical order. And so that means first for the opening statement is Ash Marwah. Go ahead, Ash.
Okay. I'm Ash Marwah, running for state representative in District 52. And I want to be the representative of the people of Sumter County and Hernando County. I want to take care of the interests of the people versus what has been going on the last 4 years with Brett Hague as our representative. He has been taking care of his employer, the developer. Last year, he sponsored the impact fee law. This year, he has sponsored the fire district referendum. We need a representative to represent the people. We need somebody who's going to control these spiking homeowners insurance costs. And what is happening is now Brett Hague has dropped out and he has been replaced by my opponent. And again, he's supported by the developer to the tune of $175,000 in campaign cash. So he is just another Brett Hague with a different name. I want to take care of the interests of the people. That's why I'm running in this election. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Temple, your opening.
Well, my name is John Temple. Lived in this area for over 40 years. I know many of your members through volunteering within the school system. I've been an educator for the past 23. I've been a teacher, a principal, and now I'm a director at the county office. Through that process, one of the first principalship that I had, we received an award called Exceeding Expectations, and it was for high achievement marks on state test. And this was the first time ever in our district that we ever received that. Because of the successful job that I did there, I was asked to go on to Wildwood Elementary, and where it was ranked in the lowest 300 schools throughout the entire state. And so we had the challenge that we changed the culture. We also improved scores. And I can tell you countless stories of times when parents and teachers and volunteers all commented on the difference. And it was more than scores. It was that kind of difference that I impacted there that I also want to do when I go to the state level. I've been married for 22 years. I have 2 daughters who both have attended public school system. I'm a leader within my community and my church. I serve on several volunteer boards and Rotary. I'm very well respected within my community for my leadership, my character, my work ethic, and integrity. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the first question, which is basically, why are you running for this elected position? And what education and experiences do you have that qualify you? And Mr. Temple, you're up first.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm running for the Florida House to continue to build on the principles that have made our state great. We have a strong economy, good paying jobs. We have quality education system that encourages parent involvement. We support law enforcement and our first responders. You know, Florida and our community is a great place to live and raise a family. And I want to serve the families of Hernando and Sumter County to ensure a bright future for children and grandchildren in some cases. You know, there are many issues that need to be addressed. We're not perfect, but there are not simple fixes to some of those problems. They're very complex. When a bill passes, it's going to have a positive effect for some and negative effect on others. You have to understand that. You have to, you know, be well versed in many areas and know how to find out what's fact and what's fiction. And you're going to have lots of people who are going to come to you and tell you that I know how just how to fix it in just a couple steps. You know, just be careful and don't be fooled, because there are no easy steps in fixing some of these issues. I've shared my professional side of my experience. I've also served as the chairman of the Sumter County Republican Party. I've supported the county and candidates through the past 2 elections, recording some of the highest voter turnout throughout the state. I assisted in coordinating 2 visits from our president and vice president, the Secretary of State, many state officials. And we continue to focus on efforts on voter registration and voter turnout in elections and supporting those candidates during and after election cycles. As I mentioned in my introduction, I believe your elected officials need to have strong character and strong integrity. You need to know how to work with people, you know, how to get things done. I've done that in my professional career, and I plan to do that as an elected official. And I do believe that past performance is definitely an indicator of future results.
Thank you. Marwah, again, what is your education and experience that qualify you for this position?
I'm running in this election to help lower taxes, help control spiking homeowners insurance, help build affordable housing in the area. We need to stop this spiking of homeowners insurance, which has really gone out of control. We have to stop the ongoing increases in taxes. And I have dealt with government in my work experience, 25 years of running my own small business, dealing with the government. I was doing road and bridge work, and it was a continuous dealing with the government. I have 25 years of experience doing that. I have a master's degree in civil engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. I want to use that experience, that knowledge, to bring a change in Florida. What has been happening is people are literally being taken advantage of here, and our taxes are continuously increasing, and I want to put a stop to that. I worked on the Borough Planning Commission for 8 years. I worked as an elected member of Borough Council for 6 years. I have participated in multiple elections. I'll hit the ground running if I am elected in this position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Marwah, this is your question to respond to first. What are the 2 most issues on which, if elected, you feel you can make a difference?
Like I said, homeowners insurance has become unaffordable. It is just going out of sight. Our taxes keep going up. Those are the two issues I want to work on and make a difference. And I will make a difference in both those issues. The homeowners insurance has to be dealt differently. We have to bring in insurance and litigation reform in Florida. And I have definite ideas on what to do there. The insurance for coastal properties has to be separated from insurance for inland properties. That way, we don't pay excessively for insurance for properties that are getting damaged by hurricane. But at the same time, we have to control lawsuits in Florida. There are just simply too many lawsuits. There are 8% of the claims in Florida, but 80% of the lawsuits nationwide are in Florida. And this is what is an unfair burden on the residents. And I want to change that. And under Brett Haig, we had an increase in our taxes because of impact fee. The fire district is another increase. The amendments on the ballot, they are another increase. On separately, Hernando County has a half-cent tax increase on the ballot. I want to bring some end to it so that the homeowners and the renters can live here peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Temple, you're next on this question, the two most compelling issues.
So as I've been out door knocking and talking to people and asking them what's most important to them, there are two things that regularly come up. There's actually many issues that come up, but two are most prominent. And one is infrastructure and the amount that we're growing, by close to 1,000 people a month. And a lot of those people are moving into our area. Hernando's growing as well. We need to make sure that we have reasonable, sustainable growth. We need to make sure that our roadways can handle the additional traffic. Those things are important. It's a lifestyle that we want to continue to enjoy and live in. Those that live in the villages don't have this issue, but many rural areas, the internet connection is not reliable. And for most places, it's very expensive to get. And so that needs to be addressed. Recently, you may have heard about the study about expanding the turnpike. So from the very beginning, I thought widening 75 was a more logical step, and that appears to be the direction that they're headed. But the state has their process that they go through, and very quickly, people were not happy about even the idea of that happening, and they voiced their concern, and rightfully so. But what we have to remember in things like that, expanding 75 is going to impact a different set of people, and they're not going to like that either. And so we have to be mindful of any decisions that we make. There are going to be some pros and cons to all those things. The other second issue that comes up is inflation. And now, while as a state rep, we can't necessarily change inflation, but between the rising costs and gas, food, just everyday living, and my opponent mentioned the insurance, there are some issues like that at state level we can work on and that we can help control by cutting taxes, keeping the cost of living down in areas where we can make those influences. And one area you want to continue to, that you'll continue to hear about is the homeowners insurance, just like you mentioned. And this is an issue that's very complicated, and a couple bullet points aren't going to fix it. The first item that is likely going to be on our agenda when we get to Tallahassee is to fix this issue. And the first place that I think we need to start and continue to shore up is the fraudulent claims, the roofing issues that we all know about. I personally have an experience with a roofer coming and saying, hey, you have roof damage, you need to file a claim. And so we started that process, and my insurance agent called me and said, and this was like 2 or 3 years ago before this became as prevalent. And so my insurance agent called me and said, hey, just want you to know, this is probably not accurate. This is what's going on. I said, okay. They came out, they looked, and said, no, you just have a 20-year-old roof. And we wanted to go ahead and take care of it.
It's time to close. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. On to the next question, and Mr. Temple will address this first. Is ensuring sufficient affordable housing for Florida families an issue you plan to address?
Yeah, it's an issue everywhere. And so I've talked to several investors or developers, also really a lot of realtors as well. And it's a problem. Like I said, not just in our county, but all over the state. And like many issues we'll discuss today, they're just aren't simple ways to fix it, but that does need to be addressed. Right now, the lack of supply and inflated prices of materials and major issues like available land, workers to do the jobs, complicates the issue even more. So what used to be, you could build a house 4 or 5 years ago, it's much, much higher now. I don't believe you can force somebody to develop their property if they don't want to. And so, if somebody owns land and that's not what they want to do, we have to be mindful of that. And I saw an article today where people were upset about the potential of a family development coming in next to them. And they want to keep their community the way it was and the way it is and their lifestyle. And they have a right to say that and voice that concern. But as we continue to grow, we have to make adjustments and change. And we have to work together to make the best of what we have. And so it definitely is on the forefront of issues to talk about.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Marwah, what about affordable housing? Or how would you address it?
I want to address the issue of affordable housing because Florida has become the most expensive state to move in. The new employees coming in our area cannot find housing. It's becoming unaffordable. The cost of housing has to be 30% of the pay of the salary of the incoming employees. The low paid employees, and I'm including teachers and lab techs and restaurant workers, they are low paid. They cannot pay more than 30% and afford to live in the area. And so we have to build affordable housing. Fortunately, in Hernando County, Brooksfield Housing Authority is building 80 apartments under that program. And these 80 apartments, if they are built, they will be available to people for 30% of their income for housing costs. And the state program will support the balance of the expense. We can increase building in government properties to lower the costs. And so we have to do multiple things. And we don't have a housing authority in Sumter County. And if I get elected, I want to do those two things. Make sure there is a housing authority in Sumter County and those 80 apartments in Hernando County, they get built and people can benefit from those 80 apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. A state trust fund called the Sadowski Fund became Florida law in 1992. It was intended to be dedicated annual revenue source to keep affordable housing projects thriving across the state. However, in recent years, the legislature has folded the money from this fund into the general budget. What are your views on this situation? And Mr. Marwah, you go first.
I believe the Sadowski Fund was doing a lot of good from 92 to 2002. 2002, under Jeb Bush, the legislature started raiding the fund, and they have been raiding it since then for general funds. So the affordable fund housing, Sadowski Fund is done for affordable housing. So the affordable housing got left out for the last 20 years. So the total of the money that has been taken out is $2 billion. And this $2 billion would have been leveraged 6-1. So the loss in affordable housing is enormous. Currently, the Sadowski Fund has $362 million in it. That's not enough to solve the problem. So what we have to do is create new partnerships with developers. We have to give them tax incentives. We have to do more. So what I'm saying is all that money taken out of the Sadowski Fund somehow has to be made up now out of the budget surplus in the state budget now. And this will help solve the crisis in housing. It will help bring new employees in our area. This is what is needed. And I will work very hard to make sure that in some shape or form, Sadowski Fund is sort of refurbished. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Temple, same question on the Sadowski Fund.
All right. Well, I'm not as familiar with the Sadowski Fund. I do know how it works. I do know what it was intended for. But one question I would have is where those funds go and what are they being used for, and how is it being used? And so, the Florida budget has to balance. And so if you take that money from somewhere else and put it where it was originally intended from the 1992, then what are we taking away? What are we getting rid of at that point? And so understanding that part of it, where's that money going to and how is it being utilized, and what effect would that have on that particular thing? As far as workforce housing or affordable housing, the county officials play a large role in what happens, just like a housing authority. That's a local run piece. So, but it's not only up to the local officials. You have to have investors. You have to have developers that want to come in and build that, and who wants to go through the steps to make it profitable, because they're running a business. They have to be profitable. A community that is accepting of that growth and that development, just as we talked about earlier. The apartments that came in, people weren't happy about many of the apartments that have come up, but those are the things that we need to do. And so not everyone's going to agree with how we handle certain issues, but at the end of the day, we have to do the best we can with what we have. Housing is an issue for many, many people, not just in Sumter and Hernando, but across the state. And our district needs to continue to be a part of the discussion at the local level. And as legislators, we have to find ways to support that. And so whether supporting our local officials and encouraging them to make those tax breaks or help them with the connections with water and sewage and those kinds of things. So finding ways to incentivize that development, that growth would be important moving forward.
Okay. The next question: what legislative actions are necessary to improve voter access to the ballot and promote voter participation in elections? And Mr. Temple, you're first up on that one.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Well, from casting a ballot standpoint, I think we have pretty good opportunities, at least in our area. We have multiple locations for early voting, over 12 days of early voting. By the way, it starts October 25th and runs to November 5th. They're open on Saturday and Sundays for those that work multiple shifts and have multiple jobs. So just a variety of ways for people to get out and vote. In 2016, the election was questioned, and again in 2020 it was questioned. So no matter what the party is, I don't think this is a party issue. We have to make sure our elections are above reproach. We're the example for the rest of the world, and that comes with a great responsibility. I believe there's a much bigger issue though. The apathy that I see in people when it comes towards voting and taking time to understand what and who is on the ballot. I can tell you countless stories of along that lines. Even my own opponent didn't know who I was and wrote 2 articles about me. My families need to take time to, like I did with our family, and take times to talk to their kids about the importance of voting. Take them with them when they go to vote. If they fill in a mail-in ballot, show them what it looks like and why they're making the decisions. Have those conversations and start when it's young. Fortunately, my oldest daughter, got the chance to vote for the very first time this year. And so Mom and I are very proud. And so what we hope is the example that we set for her and the importance that we tried to show to her, that it'll stay with her as she moves forward.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Marwah, the same question on voter access, voter participation.
Governor DeSantis called the 2020 election the gold standard. He called it the gold standard. It was done so well. But right after that, there have been additional election laws passed in Florida, actually 3 of them. One of them has partially been found illegal by a federal judge also. But what these 3 laws did was created confusion for the voters. And they started calling the supervisor of elections office with a variety of questions. And then in the end, they decided not to vote. So the voting turnout in the primary this year was low because of the confusion with these laws. What we have to do is have less of these laws. If if the election in 2020 was a gold standard, why don't we just stay with that and not add these additional burden? How about have more access for voters? How about have more ballot boxes? How about make it easier for mail-in ballots? How about make the election day a holiday? Make everything easier. If the 2020 election was a gold standard, we can certainly improve on that and do better and improve voter participation. These three laws did not help. We need to go back to where we were in 2020 and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. What legislative action would you propose to protect Florida's environment and address problems caused by extreme weather? And Mr. Marwah, you're up first on that question.
Okay, we don't need to build roads like the Northern Turnpike extension. It is already on pause. I worked hard on that, working with the Turnpike Commission and the Florida Transportation Commission. It has been put on hold. That road would have ruined environmentally sensitive areas in 4 counties, in Sumter, Marion, Citrus, and Levy counties, and I'm glad it is on hold. There is a plan to build a boardwalk in the Weeki Wachee Preserve in Hernando County. I'd like to have that come to a stop. I hope the Hernando County votes against the half-cent increase in sales tax. I don't want to see that money go into building a boardwalk in a preserve. Let's preserve the preserve. We need to deal with the extreme weather, we need to change our zoning laws. We should not be building in the path of the hurricane. That is what has been going on. In the last 10 years, there has been extensive construction with total disregard to the hurricane. And that goes back to a change in law that Governor Scott did in 2011. The extreme weather will be back again and again. We don't have to make the same mistakes again and again. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Temple, same question.
Yes, ma'am. So over the past 3 years, our state has acquired for the purposes of conservation, excuse me, for more than 113,000 acres. So making sure that we're protecting our lands and making sure that we're doing things like that, putting money to support that is definitely important. Taking actions like vetoing a water bill that would have affected the restoration of the Everglades. We need to make sure that we continue to focus in on those types of issues to make sure that we're not harming our community in the way that those things would do. We need to continue to invest financially. So this past year, we invested $1.2 billion towards Everglades and other waterways, other water resources. Over the past 3 years, over $3.3 billion. That's how you protect what we have. We can't control the weather. Hurricanes are uncontrollable. But we can protect what most of us live here for, and that's to be the outdoors, to protect enjoy the water and our beaches, the springs that we get to enjoy. The majority of our revenue comes from tourism, like places like Orlando, and they contribute heavily. But other areas across the state, our parks and our beaches, those are all areas that we need to make sure we're focused on preserving and taking care of. So making sure we continue to purchase land, make sure we continue to provide the finances and resources to protect it. And hopefully one day I'll get to retire near those beaches.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Do you support passage of a state law codifying access to contraception and abortion? Why or why not? And Mr. Temple, you're up next.
All right. Well, those are kind of two separate issues for me. I believe men and women should have access to contraception. To my knowledge, I don't know that any state has gone to those measures of preventing anyone. I know it was a concern this past year, but I can't foresee a way that would happen. As far as abortion is concerned, again, this is another discussion that we're not going to solve in this session, but I'll say that I've had the conversation with both my girls, and I don't believe that God makes mistakes. Many people that use abortion kind of use that as an opportunity to erase a mistake. And being taught in the home the value of life and responsibility for actions. And again, I'm not talking about rape or incest or life-threatening situations. The debate that many people I know and trust and talk to, and I have friends all over the party lines, that when does life begin? And ultimately, that is what we have to figure out in terms of legislation in Florida. One last thing, we've lost our way in society. The issues that don't have to be an all or nothing. We have to find the middle ground on some things, and another way we'll have our strong beliefs and we won't want to waver from that. But it's sad that we've lost the ability to have civil conversations and sometimes agree to disagree. You still care about the person, who they are. Friends and family, unfortunately, have lost relationships over the years because of it. And I believe that's an issue that, while it doesn't cover this question, it is really important, that needs to be addressed in society.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Marwah, what about the issue of contraception and abortion?
I don't support such a state law. The legislature has no business interfering with the medical decisions between a woman and a doctor. I support removing the legislation from these personal decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our final question: is the balance of power between state and local governments in Florida appropriately addressing local issues? Mr. Marwah, you're up first on that.
The balance of power between state and locals is badly skewed. We are losing local control of local issues. The infamous impact fee law, everybody's familiar with, last year was created. Impact fee was perfectly being handled by counties. Now suddenly it's statewide, it's state responsibility. The fire district referendum on the ballot this year, it is an interference by the state. Can anybody tell me what a legislator in Miami or Jacksonville know anything about Sumter County, and yet they voted on the fire district referendum? We have these amendments coming through on the ballot. They are direct interference. They are asking you to raise our taxes. This is very, very poor, what is going on. What we need to do is have local control of local issues. That way the cost of these things will be less also. The election laws have put so much stress on election offices in the counties. If you saw the Sumter County budget, they now want to build a new building for the elections office. It's just one thing after another. It's snowballing, and we have to stop that. We have to have local control of local issues and get rid of some of these preemptive laws that are coming out of Tallahassee.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Temple, over to you on that question.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I've had conversations with our supervisor election, and he hasn't seemed to think that there's an issue with the changes that have been made. But honestly, I think it would depend upon who you ask as far as where the balance of power is. If you ask a local person, local official, of course, the state's overreaching. If you ask the state level, they're going to say, no, of course not. We're working together in unison. And so it really depends upon who you ask, and you're going to get a variety of responses. It's always going to be a difficult balance between the two. The state's responsibility is to look out for the good of the state, and while the locals focused on their priorities and their constituents at home. Have you ever sat in a meeting with your supervisor, or maybe even a teacher, when they're giving a lecture to the whole group about a problem, maybe a behavior, maybe people coming in late, the production's not there, whatever the case is? When in reality, the issue is only with a few people. It's not with everybody. And so that's what I see with the state level. There are issues that affect the entire state. And sometimes that power does reach over into the local area, but they're trying to work in unison in the state's responsibility or goals to look out for the good of the entire group. It's something that always needs to be at the forefront as we're moving forward and making decisions at the state level with laws and policies and how it affects and the impacts. I've said a couple of times tonight that if you make a policy or rule, there are going to be people that are going to benefit from it, and there are going to be people that don't. When you put apartments in, it's going to help support low income because apartments typically are less expensive, but it's going to impact the others around that will create traffic and other issues. So there's always pros and cons to whatever issue that you're talking about. And so we have to find that middle ground. And at that level, you're going to have to do the same thing.
Okay. Thank you. So we're down to the closing statements. And Mr. Temple, you're up first. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. So what sets me apart? My faith, my family, my connection to the community. I mentioned I lived here for a really long time. My father worked at a steel plant here in Wildwood. I went to school and I graduated from Wildwood High School. I returned to work here and served in the community. Importantly, to raise my family. Committing to serve within my church, in the Rotary Club. I served as an educator for the past 23 years, serving as the chairman of the Republican Party. So serving is part of who I am and a history of that. Throughout the community, I mentioned I'm well respected. My integrity, my character, my passion for our home, for our community. My leadership is leadership's not going to be someone who's going to be out there yelling and screaming and carrying on. You don't have to be the smartest. Leadership is about helping people and helping find the best path for all involved and how to get things done. And I've shown that I can do that. You likely won't see me on the news yelling and carrying on. I'm going to be up there working. And that's what I want from my legislators and leaders, to lead by example, lead in ways that will continue to make Florida the great state it is. My experience in working within the school system and as the chairman, I've met so many people and I've heard so many different stories, of challenges that they face. And some I've been well equipped to deal with and help. Others I had to rely upon the resources and knowledge of other people that can come in and help out when people are hurting. Already I have a team of legislators that I'm working with because of those experiences. So when I get to Tallahassee, I'm going to hit the ground running. I don't have to wait and learn my way around. I don't have to learn the policies or procedures. I've already got a lot of that in my back pocket. I know I have a lot to learn, but I'm going to be ready to run. Last, the support that I received through this entire election. My opponents mentioned it. Many of the campaigns around the state have similar donations. But it's important to know that those people have met me, they know me, I've grown up with many of those people, and they support me because of who I am and what I stand for. I have endorsements from the Florida Chamber, the Florida Realtors Association, all 5 mayors, Senate President Wilton Simpson, our sheriff, and more. Those people know who I am, they know what I stand for, and they know what I'm about. And that means a lot to me. I never really thought about it much beforehand. And when somebody says, hey, that's my candidate, that's the guy, or that's the person I'm supporting, that's pretty awesome. And so I just hope that I can count on your support during this general election. I look forward to meeting many more of your members. I'm happy to have any additional discussions down the road. But thank you so much for the opportunity this evening to speak, share who I am, what I'm about, and let people get to know who I am. And appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Marwah, you're closing. 3 minutes.
We have a homeowners insurance crisis going on. Our premiums are doubling and tripling. People are losing insurance. It's making life difficult. We need to solve that. We need to stop this ever-increasing tax increases that are coming down the pike. Started with the impact fee. This year now it's the fire district, the amendments, the half-cent sales tax increase in Hernando County. This relentless pursuit of tax increases has to come to an end. We have to resolve the insurance crisis by having insurance and litigation reform in Florida. A major change is needed. our representative, Brett Haig, has been there for the last 4 years. What has he done? Nothing. We are in the crisis mode right now. We need to address these issues. This is what needs to be done to make life comfortable for homeowners and renters. That's why I'm in this election. That's why I'm asking you to vote for me and elect me to be your state representative, because I will be the loudest voice for the residents in Tallahassee to make these changes. And I have made that case with Property Owners Association. It's the largest property owners association in the villages, almost 70,000 members, and they have endorsed me for this position. They saw what I stand for and what I want to do. And let's do it. Please elect me so that I can make life a little bit easier for homeowners and renters. Thank you.
Well, I want to just thank both of you for agreeing to participate tonight, and good luck to both of you. I think Mary Kay has a few closing remarks.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah, I just wanted to thank both candidates for your thoughtful responses. And to our audience, I want to remind you, you can find information about the upcoming election at our website, lwvtrifl.org or vote411.org. Lots of information there, nonpartisan. And thank all of our audience for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. And don't forget to vote November 8th. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.